In my last video, I demonstrated 4 different ways to use the Waves plugins with the Avid S3L. Today I'd like to show you one more way, this time with the Waves SoundGrid BR1 AVB to SoundGrid network bridge. Whenever possible, I try to show you, the viewer, different ways to accomplish a goal. In my previous video, I used what I had on hand at the time. When I filmed the original video, I didn't own the BR1, but I've had my eye on it for a while as an alternative to the Motu M64 and DigiGrid MGO solution. After publishing my previous video, I decided to see what a BR1 would cost and started looking around. I found several vendors that listed the device, but none had it in stock. It turns out that Waves stopped making the device last year, probably because they didn't have enough sales. Apparently, they've considered a new version, but so far have no plans to produce one. In my search, I was able to find a used device in the US on Reverb, but the seller was unwilling to ship it to Switzerland. I eventually reached out to Waves directly, and as luck would have it, they had an unsold device here in Switzerland that they were willing to sell me. So now I'm the proud owner of a BR1, and I like it. I especially like the color. To give the best comparison to my previous video, I'm going to use the same source material and Waves plugins, again running on Super Rack SoundGrid. I'll demonstrate patching the device, and hopefully things will pretty much just work. For this setup, I'm following the recommended PreSonus setup on page 4 of the BR1 manual. One thing you'll notice in the manual is that the AVB and SoundGrid networks are split from one another. While you might get away with using a single switch, I found in my testing that I did need to separate the networks, as I was getting errors from my SoundGrid Impact server, which were perceptible as clicking. These errors went away as soon as I ran AVB and SoundGrid on separate networks. Before I get started, I want to do a quick sound check with my S3L by playing some source material. Yep, we've got audio. I'll start by patching the BR1 and the E3 engine together with AVB. I use the AVB util controller to accomplish the task. I'll open the AVD ECC connection matrix so that I can patch my signals. You'll see that the connection points between the BR1 and the E3 engine are dark green. This means that they're patchable. That's great, as it means I won't need to change the AVB stream format. As with last time, I will patch all of the signals in both directions so that I have a one-to-one mapping for all AVB streams. Technically, this is not necessary. I find it useful just so that I don't have to think about it later. I'll now configure the BR1 in Super Rack. I've loaded the session from my last video, but I explicitly have no devices or servers configured. In my environment, my SoundGrid network is connected via EN14 of my laptop. For whatever reason, SoundGrid always thinks this network is down, maybe because it's a USB Ethernet device. I don't know, but it seems to work anyway. Now that I've chosen the network, I can configure my Impact server and the BR1. We'll start with the server. And it looks like it's found it. And we'll come over and do the BR1. That was easy enough. So I haven't changed the routing from last time, so the channels are still configured. You can see that in my overview, in my drum compression, channels 33 and 34 are patched through, and on the snare hull, 35 and 36. I also haven't changed the routing in venue. We'll go and look just to be sure, but if I come here to patch bay, I look at the outputs for the groups, for the drum group. Still patched to 33 and 34 for Pro Tools. And for my direct out on my snare, if you remember last time, snare top and bottom, 35 and 36. At this point, I can simply play the audio. If we come and look now at my drum compression, as you see, the audio is already flowing through. I can come over to Super Rack and mute it, and it stops and returns it. Super easy. Considering everything was set up last time, it did make it very easy to do this test. As in my previous video, I want to do a quick evaluation of the options. I'll list some pros and cons and evaluate the configuration according to setup complexity, runtime complexity, portability, latency, and cost. All factors are rated on a scale from 1 to 5, and absolute numbers for cost and latency are also provided. For the demonstrations, I used a MacBook Pro 13-inch 2020 and Waves Super Rack, which cost $599. The Waves SoundGrid BR1 configuration most closely matches the previous SoundGrid FX Returns configuration, where I demonstrated with the Motu M64, DigiDesign DigiGrid MGO, and Waves Impact Server. The BR1 solution overall is less expensive, coming in at around $1,700 or 1,700 euros for the BR1 device and the Impact Server. This solution again provides a latency of 5 milliseconds end-to-end, a value that is slightly higher than the 3 milliseconds of the previous solution, but still very nice. I therefore rate latency with a 1. This configuration will require changing the AVB configuration of your E3 engine, but this is a one-time change. Overall, the general setup is quite easy though, so for that reason, I've rated both setup complexity and runtime complexity as a 3. The solution is more portable than my previous solution, as it has one less piece of equipment, but is still not the greatest, so I give it a 3 medium. The low latency still comes at a cost, but if you need the power of Waves SoundGrid, this is an excellent solution. I therefore rate cost with a 4. The BR1 is a great way to connect the Avid S3L to SoundGrid for using Waves plugins. If you have an existing SoundGrid network, the device should enable you to effectively bridge the two networks, enabling many more possibilities than what I have demonstrated. The biggest downside of the device, and this is a big downside, is that Waves unfortunately no longer manufactures the device. You might get your hands on a used one, but they seem to be few and far between. If you are seriously interested in one, you might reach out to Waves to express your interest, but don't get your hopes up. If you do contact them, feel free to mention my name, as they're aware of my previous video. Bailey.
All right.
Come on. You want to be in my video? All right. In closing, I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope that the additional information I've provided helps you in some way. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. If you have any suggestions for future videos, leave them in the comments too. I'll leave links to all the products demonstrated in the details below, and as well as a link to the script I used while preparing the video. Until next time.